I'm going to show you how to build an AI-powered system that turns your existing content into 100 plus platform posts, ready to post and costing less than 12 cents per post. And this isn't just another repurposing tool. It's rather a full stack content engine that takes insights and creates insights from an existing library of past content that you already have and then applies best known high converting social media short form templates along with creative directions catered to your specific brand with different audiences, ICPs, and segments that we're looking to target with each individual post. Then what we do is we're using some really clean prompting techniques. We basically convert them into Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn posts, clean up the text, and auto publish it along with image generation as well. And what we have as well in the system is, as we can see, we have a content readiness in this case, where we have a production workflow where we essentially create a content calendar within the system itself. So you don't have to go over to different platforms like Mix, Post, Buffer. Everything can be done internally, monitored, and including the human in the loop element where someone from your team can come, make some changes onto it, click onto publish, and out we go. It's published on Autopilot. So the best part is really that it runs 90% on Autopilot, but still gives you that final quality control or that creative control. So whether you're a founder, a marketer, or a lean team just trying to scale output without burning time, this is the exact system we've used with multiple clients who were struggling to even post 5 times every month to creating now 90 plus high quality content, reducing the cost in one of our clients' case specifically from $48 per post to 0.12 cents per post, and cutting the review time of every single post to be posted online from 12 hours a week to 25 minutes a week. So this is actually a system that I created a lot of months ago, and I was actually just going through my older systems and I came across this one and I found it really interesting how I really did the prompt engineering and just using a really select few of some really interesting make.com features. As we can see, we're using randomizers. Ceilings. I found it really interesting about the thinking behind the system. And the reason this workflow is actually really long is because this is a system that the clients in this case wanted to more or less run completely on autopilot. All they wanted was to have the quality control check at the very end before publishing, like I mentioned. But otherwise, they did not really want to have any part within the ideation, any contributions, or just any control over it. They just wanted a system that generates quality posts for them, has a call to action that brings them onto their funnel and their website, and just generates high quality posts catering to the different audiences in some case. So let's actually come to the Airtable database. If we see, we have different creative directions. So the creative directions is a library of creative briefs and guidelines that outline the tone, the voice, and the style of the content. And we use them to actually align the content with the brand's identity and messaging goals. Because if we come over here, we can see that sometimes our audience, in this case, is financial regulatory banks in Mexico and Latin America. Whereas sometimes the content we're creating is for regulator exchanges as the exemplary model of regulatory compliance. So if you now think about it, instead of just creating one big fat prompt and just dumping everything into it and just saying like, hey, create content for this exchange, for instance, and generate a LinkedIn post, a Twitter post, a YouTube, TikTok, whichever type of content. The reason we have such a long workflow over here is because we're actually aggregating and creating insights bit by bit by bit using the library of existing content we have, the creative briefs, and if we come over here, templates for best known templates that we know for a fact already perform well. So for instance, if we would think about LinkedIn, you would have the hook, then you'd have the rehook, you would introduce the problem, give the solution, and you would have the call to action if it's a lead magnet, for instance. So that's all we're doing. So if we come over here, so this is an analytical type of post where it is an email newsletter content type, the template in this case, and we have an objective, we have a target audience, we have the key message, and we have a tone of style, the reference. So if you understand, now what we're doing is we're amalgamating all these different pieces of information before we create even the prompt for the content, where we've already generating insights, mixing different templates and different creative directions to now create some really interesting content for B2B organizations while ensuring that it is always interesting, exciting. And that is exactly the reason, if we come back to the make.com scenario, why we have randomizers. Because like I mentioned before, this client, and not just this client, I do remember we've created a lot of systems around the similar framework and psychology for many clients in the past, a couple of months ago. And a lot of them did not just really want any hands-on experience. So that is the reason I'm actually going to walk through the exact system, and I think that's how it's going to make the most sense. But the reason we're using a randomizer, in this case, if we see, we're using a randomizer in this case to grab a random template, to grab a random creative direction. So we're always, if you think about the one-on-one match, wherein sometimes what we could do is the system grabs this as the, let's make it this, it grabs this as the template, and it grabs, let's say, this as the creative direction. So now we're picking different creative directions and different templates, and we have a rich library of content which we're generating insights out of. So before we even reach to the prompt generation in make.com, where if we come over here, this is where we're creating the content. We already have such interesting insights, triangulations done in the previous steps, that over here now we don't have to worry that the content is going to be repeatable, it's going to be mundane, or just going to be like very AI sounding, because we've already applied all the manipulations we had to do before that to make sure that it is aligned with the brand's identity, with the ICP. The content is not just going like, we're not just throwing something into the air and just hoping it lands. It is already aimed towards a very specific ICP. So the first step in the workflow is actually having a library of content. So I actually want to show a really neat little trick. So this library of content is, we have unlimited ways we can fill this. As you've seen in the previous videos, we can scrape top performing posts from all types of social media platforms in your niche. And what we can also do is we can just come over to interesting news articles. So let's say I found this really interesting article about crypto. All I did was search crypto online. So let's say I want to add this to our library of content. So all we do here is we come over here, let's select the entire thing, and we have a tool known as Airtable Clipper. So this is a big time saver. So if you come over here, you have to install this Clipper, and all we do then is I click into this and just give it a second. We can see we can add this as a record. So as we can see, it's added as a record, and now we have this added as a record. So that is the whole point. We just don't need to have the insights part, doesn't need to just be about the specific company. It can be anything you find interesting, because if we reverse engineer, how do we guys create content ourselves? We find interesting posts online. Maybe it's on LinkedIn. Maybe we see something on Instagram. We're like, that hook is interesting. And that's how the manual thinking of creating good content goes. You find interesting things, but now then you're thinking, I don't want to like create all this myself. You then have to do, either you go into GPT yourself and generate insights out of it, or you just sit there on a paper and start brainstorming different ideas. But in this case, what we do is anything that's interesting, we just add it to the database, and then we let AI generate insights out of them. So let me just fill this library real quick. So this is something about altcoins, for instance. And I'm very quickly going to show how the system works. I think that's how it's going to make the most sense. But this is really a really nifty trick, and we've used similar systems for some really big B2B organizations, media companies, non-profits, and the quality of the content it creates for the price and the amount of minimal manual intervention required. They've been really impressed, and they've all loved the system, and a lot of them are still using it, and all we've done is just go on to upgrade the system, like improve and add additional features in terms of an RSS feed for newsletters and blogs, perhaps scraping content from social media posts, and just making sure that they have more control. Because in terms of content creation and automations, if you want a really, really high quality system, there typically does need to be some human in the loop element somewhere. The way we like to work with different businesses who are really serious about creating good content driven by AI, we often recommend them that what you want to be doing is, after the ideation part, you want to have a human in the loop, and after the content creation part, you want to have a human in the loop somewhere over there, just before it's posted online. This is almost like the bare minimum we typically suggest. But again, everyone's different and everyone has different needs and intentions. So we have three pieces of content, right? And this is a library. If you come back over here, it is just a central repository for all content assets, articles, internal documents, previously generated content. So you could imagine if you're working with Nike, they can have 1,000 different articles over here, or a really big brand. And then what we have is the usage tracker. So this just counts how many times has this piece of content been repurposed across different workflows. So let's come back over here and let's go to the very start of the workflow. So I know it looks really long and might be intimidating for some people who are just starting to, get into AI automations and whatnot, but it's actually not that difficult at all. So let's do this first. If we come over here, let me unlink this. I just want to show the first piece of the workflow, which is this thing over here. So let's give this a run. And let's come over here and automations. So the way this works is we just come into here and we click on automations. Let's make it 2 posts, and there's a reason for this. So let's come over here and click on automations. And as we can see, it has been sent. And the way this works is it's really simple. As we have, all we do is if we come over here, when automations is selected and type of automation is generate content, we run a script. Where in this case, if we come over to the script, all we're doing is we're basically setting the number of posts and we're webhook URL. Where in this case, the webhook URL is over here and we have the number of posts with the record ID. That's all we're doing, and then we just update the record to remove the tick just for a user feedback. So the person in this case using the system, they're like, okay, it got sent. So they're not just waiting there wondering what happened. And if we come over here, we can see that the system has run. So what we do is over here, we have the webhook. And if we take a look at what the webhook gives us, it gives us the number of posts. And there's a reason we're using the number of posts in this case, because as we know, it's still using credits and we just don't want to let the system run on autopilot. Rather, we want to give the client some control. So in this case, they might just want to generate 10 posts. They might want to generate 100 posts. Completely depends on them. So we send that in the webhook URL and then we simply get the record ID over here. And what we do is here, we use a repeater. So a repeater is essentially, as we can see, so if I had to explain this simply, the repeater is, if we see, it is before the entire workflow actually begins, because if we come back over here, all we're doing is we're just getting information. We haven't started any manipulations. We haven't generated any insights using an LLM. So all we're doing over here is just getting the records. And before that, then what we have is the repeater. So if the repeater is set to 2 in this case, this entire scenario, so if we make this a little bit smaller, the entire scenario over here, if it is set to 2, it will run 2 times. If it's set to 3, it will run 3 times. So as you could imagine, the number of posts we sent, we're simply passing that into the repeater and it's then just going to generate 2 posts, 3 posts, 4 posts, 5 posts, 100 posts. Completely depends, right? So then what we do is we search the Airtable record in this case. And what we're doing in the Airtable record is we're simply searching for the content text. And if we come back to the content text, what is that? The text in this library. So we're simply grabbing all the information. We're getting everything we can. So this could be 1,000 rows of data, or this could simply be 2 rows of data in the content text. And what we do then is we simply aggregate that to an array. And that's very purposeful, because if we see over here, we're getting individual bundles of text, right? But like I said, we want to be using a randomizer to generate insights out of them. So what we do is first we aggregate that to an array. If we can open this here, we can see we just get all the content text in one single array. And then what we do is, let's give this an open. We can see now we have an array of the 3 different content texts in this case, which is these 3 different pieces of information. And now what we do is, this is really the interesting part, I would say. And this is, I would say, kind of the sauce. Maybe the sauce really depends, on what you're looking out of the system. Like I said, this system, the clients wanted it to run completely on autopilot. So that is why we're going through this mechanism. So what we're doing over here, ceiling, as we see. So ceiling of 1.2 returns 2. Ceiling of 4 returns 4. So ceiling simply returns, in this case, it returns the smallest integer greater than or equal to the number specified. So if it's a 3.3, it will return a 3. If it's a 3.6, it will return a 4. So it simply just rounds it up or down. That is all it does. And then we have random over here. So random is a floating number between 0 and 1. So if you now see this, what we're doing over here is essentially, we had 3 elements in the library, which was, if we come back over here, we see 3 different pieces of context or library text that we got out of it. And what we're doing over here, if we see, we have obviously, because we got that, we aggregated that to an array, we get 3 pieces now, and we can see the length of the entire array is 3. So we multiply by that 3 by a randomizer in this case. So what that is going to do, it's going to give us a random number between 1, 2, or 3. So if we see it over here, we can see when we look at the operations, we're getting random numbers between 1 to 3. We only want numbers between 1 to 3 because if we're trying to pull out an array element, let's say in this one which has 3 elements, and we're trying to put 5 into it, it's going to break because the array only can go from 1, 2, or 3. So that is what we do. We get 3, 3, and let's see the first one, we get 3 and 1. So that is the reason we're doing that is, if we come back over here, we can see, so now from the array, we're getting, as we saw, that initial array that we aggregated over there, we're getting a random number out of it. So we're getting a random piece of context that we want to be generating insights out of. So let's open this up, and if we see, what we're doing over here is we have source 1, and now we have a random source 1 and a random source 2. And this is what actually ensures that we can let the system run on autopilot in the background every single month without any teams having to come and make manual interventions, besides the final content creation and submission. because as long as we keep adding new sources of information, we can always just keep picking random templates, random insights, and random library content. As we can see, we only have 3 in this case, but this is what allows us to make it really random. And that randomizer is then what we pass into a GPT over here. In this case, we're not doing any creative writing. We just be using a reasoning model instead. So we're telling it you're an intelligent expert analyst, and you're an expert in synthesizing information from multiple sources to generate novel insights. And your job is to extract 2 or analyze 2 sources of information and provide a unique actionable insight that emerges from the combination. So I'll actually be giving access to this template, so you can come over here and see the prompt. But if we see, we're basically just synthesizing 2 sources of information and extracting valuable content and information out of it to make sure that the content we're generating later is really valuable. It's something interesting, something that it would take hours for really a human who's really good at his craft to come up with. AI can do it instantly because AI is that intelligent, just done with the right prompting and the right sequential techniques. So if we come over here, then we have a cleanup text. So what I want to do is I really want to lay emphasis on how this randomizer works. So let's actually unlink all of this and let's get this over here. So all we're doing in this case is, if we come here, this is a simple small scenario. We're simply searching through all the insights or the library content. Let's give this a run. And let's zoom in. So as we can see, in the set multiple variables, we have source 1, which is something completely random, and we have source 2, which is also something completely random. Although since there are only 3 pieces of content in this case, there's a 33% chance that they could be matching together. But this is the exact technique which we use later in creative directions, where we have a lot of different templates, and the different templates to always have a random match between the 2 of them and ensure that the content is always interesting and unique. So if we come over here, we can see that these are the insights that we generated. As we can see, from source 1, the report concludes that all season is a period of uniform altcoin gains, might be supplanted. We're excited to announce we have interactions, potential insights, synthesized content, and implications. And this is now really the source of creating good quality content. And how do I know this? I'm telling you, we've used similar systems, some of much more complexity, but this is really the fundamental and something that you can also use to create something for yourself or other B2B organizations. This is the exact type of prompting techniques we've used: triangulation, generate insights, generate actionable steps to create good content that is exciting, interesting, and generally full of value to the person, the recipient on the other end. Then we just simply clean up the text. This is really just to make sure we don't have those ugly HTML headers and bullets. And as we can see here, we generate insights. And now what we do is we do almost the exact same thing. But now what we're doing is, actually, let me unlink this scenario. So what we're doing over here, if we see, now we're searching creative directions. That's all we're doing. We're searching creative directions over here because, as you remember, we have creative directions made over here and we have different templates. And we're using the exact same methodology, the exact same thinking behind it, where once again, we get the creative directions, we aggregate that to an array, in this case, the brief details. Then what we do is we simply set a multiple variable. Once again, we're using the randomizer times the length of the previous array, which in this case is this one. And then we simply use the ceiling to get that random number. And then as we already know, we have the array. And then simply what we do is we use the get function. The get function is simply, it returns the number, or it returns the value path of an object or an array. So as we can see, we have the array over here and the random number, whatever it may be. If it's 5, it's going to return the 5th element of the array. And actually something I just saw is there's actually a bit of a mistake over here. This should not be here. This should actually be like this. Yes, we want to be getting the random number element from the array. So that was a mistake. It shouldn't be a plus over there. I corrected that. Hopefully that should make sense. And then we have over here, we're doing the exact same thing, but now you can see we're getting the content ideas. If we come over here, we're getting the templates. So let's come back. We have templates. Before we were doing creative directions. Now we're doing templates. That's all we're doing over here. We're getting a random template, as we can see, or sorry, in this case, we're getting all the templates. And then what we do is we set multiple variables where we're getting a random number out of that array that falls within the length of the array. So if it is 12 elements, it will return something between 1 to 12. Let's actually make this a little bit smaller. And what I want to do is let me unlink the creator record. And I just want to show how the randomizer works for the creative briefs and the elements. And if we see over here, let's go step. and we got all the different bundles of the different creative briefs that we had for this company. And what we do is we use an array aggregator to simply now condense that all to one giant array. The reason for that is so that when we use the get function later on with the random number in between, we can just pull off one of them randomly. So then is we can set multiple variables over here. We get 11, as we can see. The array in this case is from 1 to 12, and we got 11 in this case. And now what we do is we just get the 11th element of the array. And this is what it is. Creative brief for this one in this case. We do the exact same thing over here for the different templates. As you can see now, the templates, we get 7 in this case. And just to confirm, does it make sense? Yes. As we can see, we have 13 elements. Out of 1 to 13, it returned 7. It's a complete randomizer. And that is the best part about a system that we want to be running completely on autopilot. And this is what we get after that. So now let's connect the entire system as a whole. I hope it makes sense. I have, okay. And yes. So now what we have is simply one all that. Now I want to highlight what the prompts are. So let's open the LinkedIn post, for instance. And let's open this. So as you can see, you're a viral post copywriter that uses provided templates and structures. Use the input topics to write a LinkedIn post. And this is actually really interesting, guys, because I made this system a long time ago, and I find it really interesting how the way I prompt now has completely changed. I mean, I would never write a prompt like this anymore, even though this kind of prompt works as well, and I know it creates good content. I would definitely write it a lot differently. Although, yeah, it's interesting, and I would say with the system, it does a lot of really cool things. But if you do feel you want to change the prompts around, what I would suggest is perhaps you can add a separate module for creating a CTA and hashtag for this specific company in general. So let's say you're a B2B brand and you already wanted to create like intelligent hashtags and call to actions. Sometime it might be top of the funnel. Sometime it might be bottom of the funnel. So then you just want to create another prompt like that, a module that is intelligent enough, and something you can table over here. When we're creating the posts, we have a single select field that just tells it, is it top of the funnel? It has a different type of navigation. Is it bottom of the funnel? It goes through a different scenario. To have like different types of call to actions, depending on where in the funnel we're trying to take them down to. So let's take a look at the prompt, and I'm actually pretty interested to see how this prompt works. So we've given it, okay, sorry. So let's open it once again. But as you could see, yeah, so as you can see, we're giving it the template. And where is this template coming from, guys? This is the random template we got. We got one random template and we put it over there. We have the context. So infer the context from the topics below. We have the writing style. So this is a really interesting prompt. I believe I used Claude to make this prompt, and it has a lot of information. And as we can see, do not use these words. I'll definitely clean this up. But yeah, I remember because back then, like, I don't think it's a big issue now. Like AI is definitely a lot more intelligent. So you almost don't have to insert such guardrails so specifically. But this is really interesting, how I created this prompt back then. And then we have all the guidelines, and then see, we give it a creative brief once again. And if we go down to the bottom, this is the brief we're giving it, a random creative brief, and we're giving it the results. What are the results in this case? The results are the insights we synthesized out of different pieces in our library content. So do you understand? We have library content, then we generate insights out of it. Then what we have creative briefs and templates, and then we pick random two of them, combine them, and then have this really interesting prompt over here to create that content. So, and for instance, if you want to see the content it creates, it is really interesting. So it's a small Twitter post. Twitter post needs to be small, and that's why it is like this over here. So let's see over here. Regulation shapes the future of cryptocurrency. We have like directly, why our exchange in specific 3 priorities. Regulations face major exchanges, market volatility, security risk, evolving risk of digital finance, blah, blah, blah. And then we have a CTA. And yeah, the content is really boring, guys, because this is B2B. This is not like really, having the lead magnets and that type of thing. This is not what this type of businesses work with. They are more about, as we saw, we already have creative directions over here. And we see that their target audience are regulators, compliance officers. So it's more about educating and coming across as an expert in the industry. It's not really about having, that funny, like, comment this way to get this lead magnet. That's not really the point over here. And a lot of these companies we work with, they don't really want to have, like very like pushy hooks and whatnot. That is more for media companies. And I actually do want to create a system about that, about a really cool system we created that creates UGC content essentially. I think I have figured it out, and we have been using it with a couple of our clients, and we're seeing some really cool results. We basically put them on Facebook ads, and then what we do is Of course, we take them down the funnel. Then we have a voice AI agent to call them once they booked in the call. We send them to the CRM, and we have a WhatsApp agent that actually talks to them. Okay, I'm going on a bit of a tangent, but yeah. So if we see over here, here's what new investors need to know. And this is pretty clean. For Instagram, it's simple, it's clean, and it's done. This is what they wanted. And this is what a lot of businesses want as well. And as you can see, the reason also the content is a little bit lesser dense is because we're just posting on social media platforms, almost top of the funnel in this example. We do have similar systems for creating blogs, newsletters, SEO content as well, getting the backlinks, the top performing keywords, getting all that stuff. And yeah, if we come over here, yeah, before I get into the content, I'm going on a tangent, sorry. But yeah, this is what we have over here. And then what we do is we have a simple prompt to clean up the text, because this is something I've seen that at least back then, AI would typically generate things with backticks, hashtags, as we can see. So all we've done is we tell it to just clean up the text simply. And after that, we simply update the record. And what we have over here is actually something really interesting. We have an image prompt, where basically what we're doing is we're telling the GPT over here to get a prompt for us to use DALL-E for image creation. So as we can see, we say generate a detailed AI image prompt for Midjourney or DALL-E, and we tell it what the content is about, and we tell it, what the post is supposed to be about in this case. And then we simply put that image prompt into DALL-E and generate an image. And this is something that we have had a lot of different experiences in terms of image generation, because obviously if we're creating social media through AI for clients, they also want to be having image generation, because social media is incredibly visual. So this is something we have used with a couple of clients, and this is actually something they requested. Interestingly enough, having image generation from DALL-E or other social media posts, or sorry, not social media posts, but AI generation image. Another tool we've used a lot of times, you can see a video on that. I think it's the first video on my, it is known as templated. As you can see, templated IO. So what this tool do is it lets you create B2B ad style images. Really nice. Basically lets you create like looking images where you can use some really interesting techniques to basically create ads. As we can see, I know it's a bit of a look into it, but you can see you can create some really cool infographics and ad style images, which is really good for B2B orgs, especially media companies, agencies, SaaS platforms, and all that. I hope I haven't bored you guys too much. Let's give the scenario a run and let me show you how it actually looks like. So I just turned it on, and before I actually turned it on, I saw that it's actually not connected over here. So let's zoom in. Let's put this, and I just want to see. Okay, so repeaters 1. Okay, it's a link to the number of posts. So for sake of just generate 1, because I don't see any point in burning through credits when it's not needed. So let's click on this and let's click on automations. So if this run now, yeah. So let this run in the background. And the reason I really wanted to show this system is because I feel like there's some really interesting tricks that can unlock a lot of, like, it's really just limited to the human's imagination, what you can do with like just using a randomizer, for instance, and a repeater. I know it might look simple, but you can do some really interesting, intelligent prompt engineering. Right? You can have a randomizer for different prompts catalog. You can have a catalog or different posts of a different type of prompts. And if you start thinking about it, you can be like, wow, I can have all types of interesting manipulations, and just ensuring that the content is always interesting and exciting for the end user in this case. So if we see over here, we had the router, it went over here, number 1, to basically get the Instagram post, and then it's now getting the LinkedIn post, and now it's getting a Twitter post. So for Twitter, obviously, we know there's a character count, even though the game has changed on X now, people put a longer post. But for B2B, we typically keep it pretty short. So as we can see, we simply have a count writer. If we can see over here, all we do is something really simple. We just tell it, count the number of characters. And if it is, just truncate the value. That is what it is. And over here, we can see altcoins. Yeah, we can see this. We can see the post is about altcoins in this case. And if we come over to the image, so this is a complete generated image, obviously. And if you're going to be doing AI generation using DALL-E Midjourney, I know the 4.0 model has come out, and that's really interesting. I'm actually really excited to check it out myself. I have a couple of clients who want to be using it the moment it comes out, the API connection. But if you're going to be using something like this, DALL-E in this case, I would not recommend using it for anything that requires text, because it's probably going to get it wrong, and this is not something you can post on social media. So I would definitely put guardrails around here, and if anything, I would just use a tool like Templated, give a watch to the first video I think I put on my channel. That is what we have used for mainly crypto-based platforms. We've worked with a lot of crypto exchanges in the past and stock exchanges, and we wouldn't use DALL-E. DALL-E just simply the system I had over here, and I didn't want to like create the whole thing from scratch. I hope this video was valuable, and then simply what you do is you have a production workflow. This is also something that's really useful. So you can come over here, you know, you have this and you can just click on push to socials, where all you want to be doing then is just have a trigger that basically kicks it off in Make, and then you can either send it off within Make itself to Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter, or I would recommend using this tool as well. This is a really good tool. It's basically $12 every social media channel you add. So if you just have a couple of social media channels, it is worth it. However, if you're scaling, you're organizing, you have multiple agencies under you, what you want to be doing is, this is what we use for our clients, is Mixpost. So Mixpost is actually a self-hosted platform. It's a one-time payment for $299. But then what you can do is basically you can add unlimited channels, unlimited social media platforms you can connect to this, and you basically have different teams. So the way we use this platform is we have different agencies, and then we have all the social media all under their parent organization. And that is what it lets us do. So Mixpost is what I would recommend if you're trying to, you know, manage clients, or if you're a B2B organization yourself and you want to be posting social media. This is what we would do. So then what we would do in this case is, just in Make, we would listen for the webhook and we would send it over to Buffer's API and just directly post it into that. We would send the schedule date. So now you have two options. So you can either, you know, you can either manage your social media dates and schedule postings from this tool itself, or do it from Buffer. I would probably, Mixpost in this case. I would probably recommend doing it from Mixpost itself, as that lets you have one common source of truth rather than just being all over the place, a little bit in Airtable, a little bit in Mixpost. So what we use is, typically with our clients, we have the entire social media interface, and, you know, for having the human in the loop element over here. And then what we do is we send it over to Mixpost in this case, for posting it. So yeah, I'm actually going to be linking this exact make.com blueprint in the description. Feel free to download it, and do let me know, like, if you have any questions, if you think I went over it too quickly, or maybe I should create it all the way from scratch. If that would be more valuable, do let me know. I'm in a bit of a hurry today. I have to go over for a meeting over in downtown Houston. So yeah, either way, I hope this video was valuable. And yeah, if you're an AI automation, you know, if you're interested in this space, I would recommend, you know, really understanding how repeaters are. I wouldn't say something that important, but definitely learn how to use aggregators, iterators, text aggregators, and then these little functions over here. A lot of people just choose to ignore it. If I open it over here and you come here, you have so many functions over here. So let's see, arrays. You have all these functions for using an array. I actually just made a video on LinkedIn a couple days ago talking about like how so many of these functions are so useful, but yet so many people choose to ignore them. Then we have text and binary functions. You have math functions, and you have date functions. The date functions are so valuable, guys. It's so valuable. I should make a whole video, honestly, about just parse date, format date, set date, add days, add minutes, set minutes. These functions now, the timestamp, you can do so much with these different things. Having follow-up sequences. We use this in our own CRM, and using these date functions. And just having a simple follow-up sequence in your CRM with leads. Like, for instance, like last week, we got about 30 leads booked onto our calendar. So you could imagine, as we keep getting these leads, some of them will close, some of them will go in negotiations, some of them will be put in a nurture sequence. And the nurture sequence, before we had one, we were leaving so much money on the table. So much money on the table, because, well, it was too overwhelming for us to hit up these leads. But now, not now, we implemented the system a while ago, but it was actually done using this exact system, the date functions. And it's just little tricks like these where you want to be really, really good. If you're a B2B brand, on the other hand, and you're looking for, and if you're a B2B business, a founder, or someone who has a marketing team, but yet, you know, you're leaving so much on the line, you're leaving so much in the table by you're not posting consistently, your post quality could be improved significantly, you're not getting the right reach, you're not getting the impressions online, and simply your content is not actually driving any money in. Because the whole point of content is to reach your ICP, make them understand why they need you, and then they come onto your funnel, they book in a call, right? And these are the exact systems we create, these growth infrastructure systems for different businesses. This is just a really, really, really small snippet. This is like 1% of what the overall system can be and what it is for a lot of businesses and people, different businesses who we are like growth partners now with. where we implement a full infrastructure of content, a full sales cycle infrastructure as well. Like I said, all the way from creating the content that reaches your ICP to then running ads on Facebook, on Instagram, through by having AI write the scripts and create the hooks from viral content in your niche already known to be working. Get them onto a book call. Hey, have an AI voice dialer, call them instantly, speed to lead. Have a WhatsApp agent that chats with them, nurtures the lead, qualifies them really importantly, and then gets them onto a book call. Create sales scripts so that your sales team and your closers are more prepared than ever for this specific customer and how to close them. Have nurture sequences, follow-up sequences, all types of stuff. And that is what we're really starting to get into. And something I've noticed myself, guys, is that you don't want to be just selling one-off AI solutions, because that is like, it's incredibly commoditized at this point, right? You go anywhere, anyone can have a copywriting agent. Anyone can just have a really small tool. What you want to instead be providing to businesses is growth infrastructures. And that is what really creates the most ROI for businesses as well. And that's something that actually closes in that gap that they have right now, that pain. Because every business is at some stage in their cycle. Maybe they're at 500K a year, they want to get to 1 million. Maybe from 1 million, they want to get to 10 million. And just simply implementing a small little system that's just going to save them X amount of hours, this much time, is not going to drive the biggest impact. And that doesn't give you the most leverage either, as someone who wants to be creating these solutions for businesses and help them scale. So yeah, either way, guys, I've been rambling on quite a while now. The template is going to be in the description. Feel free to download it. It's going to be a Gumroad link. It is not paid. You can just put $0 and get it over there. And yeah, if you're a B2B business and you're interested in having these type of systems created for you, there's a link in the description for booking a call, and we'll be more than happy to get on a call and see what we can do and help you guys scale more efficiently, effectively through AI-driven workflows and automations. But either way, guys, hope you have a great day ahead, and cheers.